Our modern digital world relies on a foundation of sleek, universally recognizable design. Every interface we use depends on sharp, perfectly proportioned typography. That same standard of cultural dominance extends to the billion-dollar animation empire established by Pixar. When we look at these monumental achievements today, we tend to assume they were the product of a flawless, forward-looking master plan. We want to believe that highly successful people simply predict the future and march straight toward it. But Steve Jobs argued that attempting to map out your life in advance is entirely useless. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. To understand how true innovation and meaningful careers are actually built, we have to stop looking ahead. We need to reverse engineer these massive successes backward, right down to their messy, unpredictable origins. Consider the first Macintosh computer. When it launched, it introduced beautiful typography and proportionally spaced fonts, a feature unheard of in personal computing at the time. Because Microsoft copied the Mac's interface for Windows, this single machine effectively set the aesthetic standard for every personal computer we use today. But if you jump backward 10 years, you find that this global standard did not originate in a corporate research lab. It started when a young Steve Jobs made the decision to drop out of Reed College. This was a period of extreme uncertainty and poverty. He didn't have a dorm room, so he slept on friends' floors. To afford food, he returned glass Coca-Cola bottles for the 5-cent deposit. Freed from the required college coursework, he began dropping in on classes purely out of intuition. He took a calligraphy class to study serif and sans serif typefaces, fascinated by the artistic subtlety of it, with no expectation that it would ever have a practical application. Rigid, practical planning cannot engineer a breakthrough. The feature that defined an entire industry grew naturally out of a starving dropout's unstructured curiosity. We can apply that exact same lens to the second half of his career. Jobs drove the creation of Toy Story, launching the global 3D animation industry, and engineered Apple's corporate renaissance. Trace those massive triumphs backward, and you hit a wall of absolute trauma. At 30 years old, Jobs was publicly ousted from the very company he founded. He was utterly devastated. He felt he had publicly failed the previous generation of Silicon Valley pioneers, dropping the entrepreneurial baton right as it was being passed to him. But a crucial psychological pivot occurred. The intense, heavy pressure of being a successful executive was wiped away. In its place, he found the creative lightness of being a beginner again. Operating with that restored sense of freedom, he started a company named Next. The operating system developed there became so advanced that Apple eventually bought it, using Next's architecture as the foundation of their own failing ecosystem to save the company. A catastrophic loss acted as a mandatory creative reset, and the only thing that sustained him through that timeline was a deeply rooted love for the actual work. But there is still one unknown variable. Where did the relentless ambition required to execute these visions actually come from? It links back to a quote Jobs read at age 17. For 33 years, he looked in the mirror every single morning and asked himself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do? This is a highly effective filtering mechanism. When you remember that you will be dead soon, every external variable, pride, fear of embarrassment, the heavy expectations of society, just collides with that reality and falls away. Only what is truly important is allowed to pass through. This practice removes the illusion that you have something to lose, leaving you strategically fearless. Death serves as life's ultimate change agent, clearing away the old to demand absolute authenticity in the present. We can comfortably draw straight lines between these events today, but only because we have the luxury of looking backward. You are currently standing in the middle of your own messy, unconnected dots, staring into a blind future. That uncertainty makes it tempting to fall into the trap of dogma, the mistake of living your life based entirely on the results of other people's thinking. The antidote to that trap is to refuse to settle. You have to trust your intuition and believe that your own dots will somehow connect down the road. Because we all share the exact same destination of death, there is no logical reason to suppress your inner voice just to appease the status quo. Since the future is entirely unplannable, the only rational strategy for building your legacy is to follow your heart. Stay hungry, stay foolish.